Welcome to Empowered to Grow, the podcast. I am your host, Hanan Al-Basha. Welcome everyone to a new episode of Empowered to Grow in Business podcast. As always, I get very excited with every episode because every episode has a new topic and a new guest and a new mind that we're willing to explore to see how we can empower you to grow further in business. So this week is a really, really interesting conversation because it's with Dr. Khalid Saqr, who is he's in the top 2% of scientists around the world. And as always, he blows my mind with the topics that he's exploring, and I can't wait to explore with him. Dr. Khalid, welcome to Empowered to Grow.
Thank you so much, Hanan. Thank you for having me, and it's a pleasure to be with you again.
Of course, Yani, when you told me let's talk about the network state, I'm like, what the hell is a network state? You always blow my mind with the topics. Before we go into the topic, please introduce yourself to our audience and just tell them who you are and what you do.
I'm a university professor. Originally, I come from a background in computational fluid dynamics, computer simulation of complex systems. I design and implement various types of computer simulations for different kinds of engineering problems. And then I ventured into so many topics that use this infrastructure, this high performance computing infrastructure. I ventured into stuff that has to do with artificial intelligence, with blockchain, Web3, and so on. And I have this fascination about helping scientists to solve the world's biggest problems. So this is what I'm currently working on, and this is what the network state is all about.
And I love that. And I love how you're always at this intersection of merging how fascinating the human brain is, the science behind it, but also the business part. You have an entrepreneurial mind and you always work. And I know we're working on, together, we're on the board of advisors for ScienceWorks, which is the essence of it and the mission of it is commercializing IPs. I can't wait any longer before digging into what's the network.
Me neither. Okay. So to tell you and to tell all our viewers what network state is, we have to start from something called the knowledge economy. So you gotta look at the world gross domestic product, and you will see something very interesting, that in the past 10 to 15 years, the share of intangible assets in the global economy, in the global GDP, is now above 60% of the global GDP is intangible assets. And when we talk about intangible assets, we talk about something called knowledge-intensive industries. Knowledge-intensive industries are these industries that cannot grow without expansion of knowledge that comes from research and development. Mm-hmm. So basically, a network state is a state that doesn't have physical presence, that doesn't have land. It's an upgrade of the nation state model that we currently have for the past 1,000 years. And it exists only in cyber reality. And the focus of network state is the knowledge economy.
Okay. How is that different from the DAO, which is the decentralized autonomous organization? And the metaverse. Yani, I'm going to take you both sides of it.
Okay. So basically, the concept of network state is proposed by Balaji Srinivasan. He is the co-founder of Coinbase. He's an American entrepreneur and a brilliant mind. And in his book, The Network State, published in 22, Srinivasan proposes that the network state is something bigger than a DAO. It's composed of hundreds of thousands of DAOs. It's composed of millions of people who have common purpose, who share a common vision, and who have the tools and technology to exchange knowledge transactions and grow an economy based on that. And they also have a governance systems. So when you look at a decentralized autonomous organization, it's basically a network with an immutable ledger that registers all the decisions the decisions that happen. So it's just a part or just a layer of a network state.
Okay. The metaverse on the other side?
The metaverse. I mean, which metaverse? Because basically, when we talk about the metaverse, because when we talk about the metaverse technology, it's something that we are waiting to see that takes a full scale. It hasn't yet, because of so many challenges in technology. But I mean, it's something that has to do with the network state because it offers some sort of an immersive layer of interaction between the members of any network state. So it's let's say it's an enabling technology to network states.
Okay. From that perspective, if we say that the network state is based on the knowledge economy, would that kind of entice organizations who have the kind of, I don't want to say control, but have a lot of knowledge within their economy to say, you know what, we're now a state, we're independent and we don't contribute. We have Apple, we have OpenAI coming up, we have Microsoft, you know.
Yeah. But I mean, all these are companies that have jurisdiction within nation states. A network state
Okay.
is something that transcends that. So the key components of a network state, according to its original proposition, is a social network, some sort of a national consciousness among the members. So there is some sort of a common consciousness of nationhood, of digital nationhood among the members. And there is
Okay.
also a consensual government, a government that takes the consent of every participant to issue a decision, to change a rule, and so on. And there is also the power and technology to make collective action. So let's say there is Apple in the US and there is Baidu in China, and there are like 5 or 6 other companies around the world. If these companies reach to a point where they decide that they must work alone in order to continue growing, they can set up something like a network state in between them, and they can practice self-governance, and they can practice common knowledge creation and capturing using these key components. So
Okay.
basically, the principles of a network state are moral innovation. There has to be some sort of a, and this is what I want to talk about actually.
Yeah.
There has to be some sort of a common morality model among people, right? And there is
Okay.
something called digital first foundation. That means everything is preferred to be digital rather than being physical. And there is
Hmm.
also a crypto economy because a network state must have a crypto economy. So what I want to discuss today with you, and I want to present to our audience, is if we take this original proposition of Srinivasan of the network state and we try to imagine it, we reach to something that is very close to Skynet, right? To a very
Yeah,
dystopian reality. Because
exactly.
how can we find a common morality model between so many different and diverse groups of people, and how can we make sure that the crypto economy won't be used for bad things, for wrong causes, and so on?
But 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 that's the point, Khalid. That, you know, as you said, first of all, yes, I understand that. Let's say the members who would come together to create this network state will have shared common interest, shared knowledge base. Um, the assumption of them having a shared moral base as well is something we'll dig into it. But the legislative part, because my mind
Yeah,
thinks business, okay, as you said, a business needs
yeah,
a structure, needs a legal setup somewhere, that it has rules, it has the you know, the bank account, it has the hiring, it has the outcome and
yeah,
the revenues and all of this.
yeah.
So, you know, detaching from that, let's look at the framework, and then let's dig
Okay,
into how do we ensure
absolutely.
the morality part.
Absolutely, absolutely. If we go back 200 years ago, we don't find anything that we have today, right?
Yeah.
If you go back 200 years ago, we don't have things that we use on daily basis, and it's very difficult to set up a company in a country, and you gotta get a royal decree of some sort to set up a company in the UK, for example, or in Europe. So basically, the frames that we have in our mind to think about
I lost you there for a second, Khalid.
Yeah,
Khalid?
did you get the
Yeah,
signal
okay.
back?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
got you
well,
back. Okay.
that's another reason for having a network state, connectivity.
Better
So
connections.
yeah. So basically, if you want to look into that, just think of a group of million people scattered all over the world, and they have this software on their devices where they can log in every day for 5 to 6 hours, and they make enough money during this 5 to 6 hours to make a living at their place, and they get paid by a cryptocurrency that is accepted where they are, right? And they actually take decisions with the other million members to change the future and direction of this software, of this system. So when you think about that and you look at the trajectory of such system in time, you reach to a point where these million people can actually claim diplomatic recognition from nation states. Why is that? Why a country like the US or Russia or China or Emirates or Saudi Arabia would actually recognize the diplomatic entity of a network state? Because of the energy consumption. Because we live in a time where an application like ChatGPT alone will be consuming electricity equivalent to what 36 million people will consume in a year by 2030. So we live in a time where computing have has this kind of a giga demand of electricity and cooling water. So basically, this puts the network state into action. This puts the network state into perspective, because if we have this, we will be able to have networks and software systems that create and captures knowledge and also have their energy independence.
But going back, for them to be able to, again, this is based on a knowledge economy. The knowledge needs to be
Yeah,
stored and saved somewhere so those million people could log in and be able to do it. That's again, it's going back to the, we'll still need the electricity and the servers and the consumption of the power to be able to have this interaction
uh,
going on a daily
Yeah,
basis.
absolutely. If you are in a nation state where we are now in our world today, the energy demand of advanced countries like the US is rising exponentially because of the progress in computing, in artificial intelligence, in its applications, and its layer that has been given to the public, like the large
Okay.
language models and generative AI and so on. So this growth will put a lot of burden on countries that actually innovative and they create more knowledge and more advances in computing, for example. So what if we distribute this burden all over the world? So what if the computing doesn't happen on a centralized server? It happens on a network of a million PC, right? So we
Mm.
basically distribute this kind of massive load, massive demand on energy to the entire world, to so many people and nations. So that's how you get to have a better impact on human ecology. You get to have a cleaner computing industry, because now, I mean, the artificial intelligence as an industry, it has a massive carbon footprint.
Yeah.
That's why Srinivasan's concept of the network state is now very relevant to what we're seeing now, and it needs a lot of effort to put it into practice.
But that's another angle to it as well, Khalid. So we're looking at distribution of the consumption or the usage of the power across the states because it's diversified in terms of the members of that network state. But we're also looking at diversified power. How, like, you mentioned Skynet. And for those who are not Terminator fanatics like myself, and obviously you, Skynet rose up to be the evil one, the one that, was
Yeah,
sending in the Terminators to kill
yeah,
humans because they didn't
yeah.
want them around. They were trying to destroy it. How does this not evolve into a Skynet? Because you mentioned AI as well,
Okay.
and we're looking at how AI will become autonomous over the
This is
next 10,
this is
20
this
years.
is this is an excellent question. This is an excellent question, and it brings us to my proposition of a human first network state. So the
Okay.
original proposition by Srinivasan doesn't actually go very deep into artificial intelligence because of many reasons. Because it was published like 6 months before the Chat GPT revolution. Because his book was actually theoretical and foundational, just to tell the people what the idea is. But when you put this into practice, as you said, you realize that in order to have autonomous governance for a network of 1 million people that create and capture the value of knowledge together,
Yeah.
with all the cultural variations and all the morality differences, you have to have a layer of artificial intelligence. You have to have a
Yeah.
layer of AI that actually makes everything smooth between the members of the network state. And if you get that, if you have that, you have two major risk factors. The first one, as you mentioned, has to do with the risk of compromising this kind of AI layer, whether from inside or from outside. And
Yeah.
the second risk factor comes from the energy consumption again, because it increases the carbon footprint of a network state. So I'm proposing a new approach to the network state concept. It's an intrinsic approach, not an extrinsic one, like the one originally proposed, and it's called human first network state. So basically, the idea is very simple. We have to have a method to distinguish between human knowledge and machine responses. So we have to
Okay.
have some kind of a fingerprint, okay, that
Yeah.
tells every member of a network state about each piece of knowledge that they read or see, whether it is man made or machine made, right?
Yeah.
So having this ability to distinguish will allow us to actually do a lot of things without needing AI. The problem in the knowledge economy from AI is that knowledge is now being distorted and being fabricated, because you have the knowledge creation index is going up like crazy, but the knowledge capturing is almost the same. So
Yeah.
we get to have a lot of noisy knowledge that seem to be valuable, but they are actually not valuable. It's not valuable. So one of the purposes of a human first network state is to distinguish between human knowledge and machine responses. The second thing is just use the AI for offering or for enabling cultural integration between different languages, different customs, different people, different nations. So we don't use, in a human first network state, we don't use AI to make decisions. So basically, there is no decision making by a machine here, rather
Yeah.
than the original proposition, which actually can be done that way.
But again, and I'm going to go back to the use of AI here. There are two things. Number one, you would still need the AI. Again, this is a network state of knowledge. I want to call them fountains. These are people with the knowledge to be able to create things. So you will need a place not only to store that knowledge for it to be shareable across the million people in the network state, but also to compartmentalize it and to be able to filter through it and everything else. So there is a layer there that we are talking about AI having an integral role. This is not just, a role of being responses. And there is the part, like now, for example, I'll tell you how the line is becomes blurry between what is the human input and the AI response is I use ChatGPT to I use it as my journal in essence, that I write my thoughts and I write everything I want. And then I ask it to edit it for LinkedIn because I tend to have run on
Mm.
sentences. Now, this is my knowledge, but it has been augmented by AI,
I
you
understand.
know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I totally understand. Well, actually, first thing, I love working on blurring boundaries. Okay, this is
Yeah,
what
I
drives me
know.
what drives me on. Yeah. So basically, let's say you use ChatGPT as a journal. So let's say you get paid for every thing that you type on ChatGPT, but you
Hmm.
get paid more for things that you don't type on ChatGPT, and the network that pays you has the ability to distinguish between both sentences, between what you write from your own mind without augmentation, and what actually goes through the chat GPT. And you get paid higher for what you write. Which direction would you go? Would you write your own without chat GPT, or would you use that? So this is one thing. So the second thing about storing and enabling knowledge on a
Yeah.
network state. Actually, blockchain gives us that because we actually can share storage area, storage
Yeah.
um, between our machines, right? And we can
Yes.
actually share processing power as well. So in its essence, a human first network state is a network state as defined in the book of Balaji Srinivasan, but with a layer that makes sure that humans get paid for their knowledge, that they don't run through AI, they don't run through ChatGPT, never run it through ChatGPT because this is like human knowledge. It's much more valuable now than the augmented knowledge or than the machine generated knowledge. And in the same time, if they do that, if they do like an augmentation with an AI, the AI at this point will be powered by renewable energy, will be powered by a sustainable source of energy that makes this network state has a very small carbon footprint, thus becomes qualified for global competition. It will have the income of current nation states, right? It will be consuming energy and cooling water collectively all over the world, what is equivalent to a country, right? And at the same time, it's producing knowledge, what is equivalent to a country. So if the knowledge economy trends go the same way as they have during the past decade, now we are 61% of the global GDP comes from intangible assets.
Yeah.
If we extrapolate over like 5 years, we will be like 75%, 80%, 90%. At this point, the nation states, the existing nation states, must consider diplomatic recognition of networks because they have a knowledge impact. They have an impact on the global GDP.
Let's look at it again from the governance part, because that's
Yeah,
where that aspect of morality that you were talking about.
that's where the
Now
devil
we
is.
know, again, a lot of gray areas over here. We know that two of the main, I want to say, disruptors that impact morality are money and power. And when you're
Absolutely.
saying now, I'm coming in to this network state with my knowledge base, first of all, is there any knowledge that can be extracted that is unbiased? My personal belief is all data is biased because
Yeah,
it depends on
absolutely.
who,
Yeah,
on
yeah, yeah.
who processed it in what way from what worldview lens. And the second is, how does this ensure that the governance of it is not used, that the whole network state becomes one that alters the knowledge base towards its
Yeah.
own agenda?
Yeah. Massive questions. So, so the first question about bias. Yeah, absolutely. Every data set that exists on Earth has a certain limitation when it comes to bias. This is something that we cannot deny, right? But I
Yeah.
mean, the collective availability of data sets would actually give us a very definitive margin of bias that we can actually predict the bias and we can actually disqualify it at the end. If we
Okay.
look at medical imaging, for example, medical
Yeah.
imaging. Now, I'm working with a group of friends between Australia and Germany, and we are trying to come up with a system that helps radiologists um, identify and diagnose disease from medical imaging at the click of a button, right? So without needing all this massive education in radiology and so on. So we take data sets and we give it to the deep learning algorithm or genetic algorithm to learn from it. So
Yeah.
each and every data set is actually biased. But I mean, having like 1,000 data sets coming from, let's say, 200 sources, with like 50 or 60 different sources of bias. Mathematically speaking, these different sources of bias will eliminate each other at the end.
Yeah, I was just
So
about, it
basically,
eliminates the skewing of the charts and the data.
exactly, the skewness,
Mm.
exactly. So you get to a point where, yes, each and every block is a little bit biased or somehow biased, but the collective, just like ChatGPT was trained on biased data. Yeah, it still has some bias, definitely. When you talk politics with
Yeah.
ChatGPT, it has a bias. When you talk gender, it has a bias, and so on. But I mean, who wants to use ChatGPT as is? Like you just use it as is for your journal, for writing some notes, for stuff like that. But I mean, for doing research, we use specialized agents. We develop our
Yes.
own agents actually to
Yes.
get rid of this bias. This is one thing about bias. About governance, in blockchain, there is this thing, it's called weighted voting. So weighted voting, that means depending on the stake that you're taking to the network, like the amount of
Mhm.
resources that you're dedicating to the network, you can make a vote. So it's basically it is democratic, but at the same time, it's based on stake. It's based on how much you're betting on the network. So yeah, there is a possibility that decision making in a network state could be influenced in a way by a group of people who have high stake on a network. But come on, look at nation states. Are they
Yeah, I was
better?
just about to say that's the concept of lobbying right now.
It is. It is. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yani, I said we're going to be doing this for half an hour, and I know I could be talking 2 hours with you just back
Yeah.
and forth. But I want to address before, since we still have a few minutes, I want to address the entrepreneurship part now. How
Yeah.
does the evolution, let's call it the evolution of the concept of network states, influence how people do business, the concept of entrepreneurship and innovation?
Well, yeah. I have been very moderate so far in this interview, but now I'm going to say a radical opinion. I
Okay.
believe that there are two industries that will be extinct in the next 10 years. Number one, we talked about it before, higher education, universities. There will be no universities. You remember when I traveled in time to
Yeah,
2034
I
and
remember.
we
This was in
spoke
60 Minutes
during
Business
the
in Arabic.
space time. Yeah, yeah. It was crazy. And then venture capital. The current system, the current model of a startup founder, co-founders, venture capital, incubator, accelerator, all this is gonna be extinct. Why I'm saying that? Why am I saying this radical opinion? Because actually the runway from ideation to validation is going to be very short. Now
Hmm.
we are talking about in science startups, in science rooted startups where we both work with science works. I mean, now we have something like 60 days from conception to testing.
Yes.
If it's like in engineering, in 3D printing, in computing, in whatsoever. So there is like a 60 days, and actually the number of solopreneurs is getting higher in science. So basically, there are many scientists now, particularly the young ones in Gen
Yeah.
Z. They actually get this idea and they have the tools to create a mock-up and an MVP by themselves, and then go trying to find co-founders to play the part, right? To
Hmm.
play the role of a co-founder. So
Yeah.
in my thinking, and to answer your question, entrepreneurship will be entirely disrupted. Everything will be different in 5 to 10 years from now. The big bet that I'm placing on this is accelerators and incubators. Accelerators and incubators, if they don't adopt these technological revolutions, if they don't adopt generative AI to the fullest extent, if they don't adopt blockchain and Web3 and network states and so on, they will be the first part of the game to go out of business.
Because they would become redundant.
There will be no need for them, because the need for an accelerator or incubator is to give the know-how to the founder, right?
Yeah.
How to build and run a startup. So they don't need that now. They can actually, I mean, I meet inventors who are 22 years of age, and they come up with a chemical formula or a design, and they illustrate everything in a video and attach some documents and convert it to a non-fungible token on Solana or on Polygon blockchain. And they actually go and sell this to anyone who pays higher, who pays more. And that's it. And they don't want to build startups anymore. They don't want to build companies. Why would I do that? I will just
Hmm.
create 1,000 NFTs, and this 1,000 NFTs if someone has them all, can actually decrypt the file and see what's in it. And I will start by giving my friends some and giving others some. And then there will be this big corporate who will run to buy this NFT from each person in order to
Yeah.
collect it and find, put the puzzle together. And each time the non-fungible token is sold, I'm getting a percentage, a royalty. So why would I go and register a company under a certain jurisdiction and pay taxes and do all this? So there is this concept now, it's called IP NFT. So basically, people who go for patents now are like um, people who are familiar with the old system, but the young researchers, the young scientists, they are definitely going for the decentralized science.
Can we see the evolution? Because you spoke about accelerators and incubators, and of course I'm part of them. Whether mentoring or running like founder institutes and stuff. Could we see the evolution of the entrepreneurial ecosystems around the world over the next 10 years, because they have the knowledge base and they have the mentors and they have everyone experienced founders within them, evolve into a network state? Or is that going to be not very helpful?
I believe that the first network state will be mine. This is one thing. The second thing, the second.
I'm recording this, and I will say I had Dr. Khalid.
Yeah. This is one thing.
Human first network state.
Human first network state. But I believe that it will the concept will propagate first in knowledge intensive industries. Like it will propagate first, like what we're seeing now in the decentralized science movement around the world. There are more than I think $200 to $300 million raised in the past 5 years for decentralized science seed stage companies. So I believe these startups who are building science on a blockchain will be the first group of a network archipelago, as Srinivasan calls it, and the first group of networks that will merge together and become a network state, and then the medical doctors, and then the engineers, and so on and so forth. So I believe it's going to be a sector specific at the beginning. So the knowledge economy will be splitted into network states, overlapping network states, and then other fields will join later on. So among them will be entrepreneurs who are not working with science, like people who are working with fintech, with even fintech now is being decentralized. Yeah.
Dr. Khalid, mind-blowing as promised. I'm going to sit and think of what network state will I create next, or maybe I'll join you.
Absolutely.
And we'll see.
Yeah.
It's always a pleasure to have these
pleasure is all mine.
Very intriguing conversations with you. Before I leave you, I always have a question for my guests. Empowered to grow. What does that phrase mean to you, or how does this phrase resonate with you personally?
I love working with students. I teach fluid mechanics at the university, and empower to grow is something that I try to give to each and every student that I teach to. So it's something that it's a mindset. To me, empower to grow is a mindset that comes from sharing knowledge without limitation and working for the greater good.
I love that. Khalid, thank you so much. Always a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Hanan.
And for everyone who either watched us today live or is seeing the replay, I hope you do think of how network states are going to come up, what part you're going to be playing in it, and to always have human first as a focus. I believe we still have a lot of value to add, and I think we're not becoming extinct anytime soon. So until next time, I always wish you love, abundance, and prosperity. And I hope to see you in the next Empower to Grow in Business episode. See you next time. Thank you for listening to the Empower to Grow podcast. I'll catch you on the next episode. And until then, know that empowered you empowers others. Love, abundance, and prosperity to you all.